By now, you've no doubt already heard that this summer is poised to be one of the best in a long time due to the large Land Out of Time update slated for release this July. Being that it's been a while since we've had an expansion size release like this, I thought it would be a good time to review the lessons learned from the previous updates, along with what I hope to see in this update if it's truly going to live up to the hype. Hello everyone, my name is Taki, and if you want to be the first to be notified about PvM, skilling, or quest guides that I put out, make sure to click the bell icon. First, let's talk about the gold standard all the way from 2014, Prifddinas. Prifddinas is a central hub that displaced a ton of content when it was released. It's locked behind 10 level 75 skills and 15 quests. This makes it a very nice goalpost for any account, but it also remains immediately out of reach for any players that left the game a long time ago. This also means that investing in post-Prif content isn't the most advantageous use of development time, since only a fraction of the player base would be able to interact with that content. In terms of quests, there are really only a handful that are tied to unlocking the city, and as you can imagine, those quests are probably some of the quests with the lowest completion rates. In terms of PvM, we really only have a few things, and none of them alone are too compelling. Skilling is clearly where this place continues to shine. Of note here is the top-end agility course, AFK thieving, and the skilling hotspot system that rotates around each hour to encourage a variety of use. From here we move on to the ARC release of 2016, and this represents a fundamental change in terms of design philosophy. The content here is locked behind one mini-quest and 90 plus stats and a variety of skills. This content is unique in that it was never intended to make this area act as a hub of any kind. In fact, this area is pretty much an instance zone. In terms of quests, we have a ton of mini-quests and further storylines that take place within the Isles of the Ark. The stories are rich and the environments are amazing to look at. In terms of PvM, there really isn't much going on here outside of the first elite dungeon, but that one piece of content is enough to hold up the category. The design philosophy changed the way skilling was done here. The overarching goal here was not to make these training methods the best in the game, so that way the main game world didn't seem empty for lower level players. As it currently stands, there are really only two decent training methods here, mining and hunter, the latter of which is getting nerfed soon. Outside of these cases, this content is all but dead. Finally, we move on to 2017's release of Menaphos, and this represented the biggest change in design philosophy yet. The content here was designed around being an accessible Prifddinas. In order to achieve this, the content was locked behind only 3 short quests. The 3 pillars of the game are also well balanced here. We have 5 quests in the Desert series that take place here, along with a ton of city quests that are also filled with lore. PvM stands apart in this update with a huge Slayer dungeon and the addition of 120 Slayer. This dungeon also came with a new solo boss, tier 92 weapons, and a new set of tier 85 power gloves. The skilling here was also only designed to act as a mid-level training area, but there are aspects that are still very useful. Of note here is the fishing, woodcutting, and runecrafting that all remain good training methods to this day. This update certainly wasn't without its fair share of controversy. Batches and very slow reputation gained plagued the initial release, but hopefully these were valuable lessons for the company. Taking all of the lessons that we've hopefully learned from the 3 biggest updates, what can we hope to gain from an update with a landmass the size of 3 Faladors? Hopefully a great deal. Here are my top guesses at what I expect we will see in this update, along with some dream additions that will probably never see the light of day. The following section contains spoilers from the current questline Desperate Times, so if you don't want anything ruined, skip ahead to the next section. It goes without saying, but I expect the lore of this new location to be in a league of its own. And if past updates are any indication, I imagine that we will see a minimum of 4 storyline quests built off the events of Desperate Times. There is so much room to explore in this new quest line. In Desperate Times, we are tasked with confronting the threat posed by the Elder Gods. Saren tells us that the Elder Gods plan on destroying the planet and need to be convinced that the planet is worth saving. Karapak arrives at the meeting saying that the Elder Gods cannot be reasoned with and need to be put to sleep with the power of the needle. He goes on to trick you into giving him the power of the needle and takes off in the direction of this new island, but not before revealing his plan to destroy the entire planet to stop the Elder Gods. This change in storyline has potential to drastically impact PvM and skilling. On the PvM side of things, I expect that we will see a slew of new creatures come to fill out the Slayer tree through to 120 to make it more robust. I also expect that we will see our first new solo boss in a long time at or comparable to the difficulty of Telos with useful gear upgrades that we currently do not have access to. The storyline opens up a few opportunities for what this encounter might look like. We might have a dinosaur-themed boss, a powerful dragonkin, or some form of an elder god. This probably will not happen, but it would be really nice to see a large-scale raid added to the game that provides comparable upgrades in terms of abilities and equipment to those available in the Mazcab raids. With Carapac in charge of the needle, there are so many good options for boss mechanics going forward, most notably a new boss encounter that includes time augmentation. With Elder Gods involved, I expect the gear that we get from these new encounters to be vastly superior to anything else we have in-game. My hope is that some form of a gear upgrade is bind on account to encourage more people to actually take part in these new boss encounters, whether that be a solo encounter or a group encounter. I also have hope that these bosses will have a scaling difficulty level now that Reaper is planned on being removed from comp capes. And finally, onto the skilling side. We have so much room for content here. It goes without saying, but we might be seeing that new Hunter update take place on this new island, and I for one wouldn't be the least bit upset if it in any way involved some Monster Hunter mechanics given the dinosaur connection. If all of the previous big updates have taught us anything, it's that you need a minimum of 2 useful skill additions to carry the content forward. Assuming that the Hunter update takes place here, that leaves us with room for 2 minor additions to 2 individual skills or 1 large update to 1 skill. The fact that the dig site was recently revamped leads me to believe that we are getting a new skill entirely, but it wouldn't make sense for that new skill to be archaeology like everyone thinks, given that no people ever lived on this new island that we're going to. Paleontology also wouldn't make sense due to the fact that the island is currently inhabited by live dinosaurs and not fossils. I think the most logical addition for a new skill, if we are going to get one, would be excavation. Excavation makes logical sense as a gathering skill due to the fact that we already know the Elder Gods have buried stuff under the surface of the planet. What this skill looks like in practice, I have no idea, but I imagine that it could resemble shifting tombs in a sense. This skill would have to give us something new that we don't already possess in the game, and this seems like a great time to introduce new Elder God equipment and/or the long-awaited skilling offhands. I really hope that if we are getting a new elite skill with this update, that it doesn't include really high-level requirements to unlock like Invention does. You want this content to be as accessible as possible. It also needs to make this area into a popular hub like Prifddinas. Taking that into account, training of a new skill should be contained to this new island. New players that are returning to the game with this update need to see people around them engaging with the content and possibly offering assistance or advice. I cannot stress this enough, but this island cannot be dead on release. It needs to have at least one training method that is vastly superior to anything else in the game, and that cannot be only Hunter. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the features we might see in this new update. Leave me your thoughts below for what you are most looking forward to, and I'll catch you next time.